European Union (EU) has been working with the government of Nepal since 1992 to promote economic prosperity, social inclusion, and to ensure a democratic and accountable institution in Nepal. So today we have a very special guest, and she is none other than Ambassador and the head of the delegation of the European Union to Nepal, Her Excellency Veronica Cody. Welcome to Nepal Aaja.
Good morning, and thank you first of all for inviting me to participate in this interview.
What would be EU's contribution for Nepal to attain a sustainable development goals?
We're working on key priority sectors with the government on education, on nutrition, on rural development, on reconstruction, of course, and also on democracy and good governance. And these are all key areas that the foundation blocks, I would say, of development. This has been the case for some years now. These have been our focal sectors. We try to engage with those who need us most, and I would say that the Sustainable Development Goals are one of the key guiding documents that we have in our development policy, and we see the UN as a key partner in the work that we do around the world, including in Nepal.
Yes, so for to attain the Sustainable Development Goals, EU has been contributing a lot. What would be the challenges? What are the challenges that you are facing when you are implementing the projects and everything in Nepal?
Well, over the last financial framework, which was from 2014 to 2020, the EU has contributed a portfolio of 360 million euros in the bilateral envelope to Nepal. And most of that goes, at least 60% of that goes directly in budget support, so directly into the government's work. And we also have regional funding to which Nepal has access as well. We think education is extremely important. Nepal has a very young population. You have, I think, 50% or more of the population is under 30. This is an important figure, and it's one that we're very conscious of. It has been shown, again, under the Sustainable Development Goals that higher rates of literacy and higher rates of education ensure a better quality of living for citizens. So this is a first area we think really needs attention. We contribute to primary and secondary education, but also to vocational and technical education. And we think this is particularly important in order to provide skills to young people, which will enable them to pick up employment here in Nepal and not to have to migrate. Then another important area that we pursue very closely with the government in the multi-sector nutritional approach is nutrition. And here we work also with UNICEF. Again, Nepal has very high rates of stunting and of wasting. Stunting, of course, is where children are not reaching the appropriate height for their age. Wasting is where they're not meeting the appropriate weight for their age. And there also has been in the past high rates of infant mortality. But we have seen a marked improvement in each of those areas, and a marked improvement also in the health of women in childbirth, recovery rates. So these are also important factors to consider. A healthy population and certainly nutrition in the first developing years of a child's life are very important, also in developing cognitive ability and moving ahead. This is allegedly the case. So I think it's important also that we look at this sector and work together on this. And this we have been doing. And I would like to congratulate Nepal, in fact, on winning a Sun Nutrition Award for the leading work, pioneering work they have been doing in the multi-sector nutritional approach area. Then if I turn to agriculture, agriculture is only part of our rural development policy, but it's an important part. And here we're working to develop agriculture in areas which are perhaps less accessible or more remote, and where it has not been so easy to promote agricultural projects. I'm thinking particularly of the coffee sector, and we are trying to add to the value chain of the coffee sector in Nepal by promoting the growth of organic coffee with a high-end market. And
I think that's a long-term solution, because Nepal has been so reliant on remittance that we forgot to utilize the resources that we have. So it's very thoughtful to have an investment in agriculture sector as well. So, like you said, EU has been working on education sector, like school sector development plans and technical and vocational education. So these are the soft skill development that a human need to sustain in a society for a long term. And regarding this and the other that, like you said, EU also has funded in the nutrition as well. But besides that, what we've seen is a little bit of a reluctance to invest in infrastructure development of Nepal. So what do you have to say on that regarding the infrastructure development in Nepal?
I would say, first of all, that the EU is not the only provider of assistance in Nepal. There are many actors, many big actors, including the European Investment Bank, the Asia Development Bank, the World Bank, who contribute significantly to infrastructure projects. We work very closely with the government on what they tell us are their priorities, and that has been the case up to now and will continue to be the case. We will very soon have an EU-Nepal joint commission meeting in Brussels on this occasion. It alternates between Kathmandu and Brussels. And on this occasion, we will have the opportunity to listen once again to the, this time, new government of Nepal, to listen to their needs and what they feel are their priorities in the coming years. And we will discuss precisely these issues of where the priorities should lie and where our cooperation should go in the future.
As Nepal is going in a new phase with its new political structure, with the federal system going on, so how do you assess the political situation of Nepal?
Well, first of all, I think Nepal has made tremendous advances in recent years. There has been a decade of conflict, then a decade of transition, and now I think Nepal is emerging from those years and trying to restore order and harmony in society. I think the elections, which were judged to be broadly free and fair and delivering elections at 3 levels, at the federal, provincial and local level, within a relatively short time frame, it was quite a challenge, and I think the general conclusion is that it's been quite an achievement to arrive at the result that emerged. Second, the Left Alliance, which was victorious in the elections, has a very strong mandate, an even stronger mandate since it now is a single party and now has been joined by the FSF. This, of course, enlarges the representation of the government, and it now has a 2/3 majority, a full, clear 2/3 majority. So this too offers a better perspective for stability for the country and the real perspective that the government will fulfil its 5-year mandate. And I believe this in turn will give very good prospects for better economic growth and greater confidence from foreign investors. So all of this is very good. I also think there have been other positive developments. The Constitution itself is the provisions of the Constitution are broadly very modern and progressive. There are particular provisions which are very, very welcome, inclusiveness, also the provision on participation of 33.3% of women in Parliament. These are important steps forward for Nepal. Federalisation is also a tremendous opportunity for the country, though it is also a tremendous challenge. The benefits of federalisation can be that we're bringing governance closer to the people. If you have a 3-tier structure, you decentralise some of the power from the capital. The provinces are empowered, the local authorities are empowered, and can provide services at a local level and develop policies over a reasonable time frame for greater development each at their own level. I think this is extremely important, as I say, in bringing governance closer to the people, and in having more transparent and accountable government. There could also be economic dividends. Decentralisation will mean that, of course, there will be a number of civil servants will have to move to the provincial and local levels. These in turn will require housing, they will require schools for their children, hospitals, banks, services. The new municipal buildings, the new provincial buildings will have to be set up and services provided. All of this can be its own stimulus for growth and business development at a more local level. So in this way, I think federalism can be very much a power for good in Nepal. Of course, it also has its challenges. It's an extremely demanding task. It would be a demanding task for a very developed country to introduce federalism. For Nepal, it will be an expensive exercise at a time when the economy is not in optimal shape, to put it mildly. It will also require a change in mindset to a certain degree, because traditionally the government has been centralised. And of course, there will have to be vigilance as well that the new systems put in place are, at provincial and local level, are also accountable and transparent in their dealings. And this too is something that will be important. So advantages on one side, difficulties or challenges on the other. But I think, as I said, federalism has the potential to be an enormous good for Nepal.
Adding to my question again, do you think in Nepal federalism was introduced very late, or should it have been earlier or much sooner?
Well, this is a difficult question in the development of any country, I would say. I don't think it was possible to introduce it sooner, because there wasn't sufficient agreement in the country amongst the differing political parties as to what kind of Nepal they wished for. The constitution, which took some time, a lot of consultations to develop, is what has allowed the parties to come together and finally agree on the shape of the country that they wished. And in accepting the constitution, they have spoken. And the elections, of course, was the next opportunity then to say what kind of government to express for the people to express what kind of government they wished for. So I think it's for the Nepali people to make that decision.
So how important is social inclusion for EU when it comes to development of Nepal?
I believe social inclusion is a bedrock of good governance. It's important that each and every citizen has a voice and can contribute to the government of the country, and also in the development of society generally. And it has been proven that the more inclusive societies are, generally the more stable they are. And we believe this is one of the foundations of democracy, to include as many groups as possible in deciding the future of it, shaping the future of the country.
So I'd also like to go to the women development question. So how do you see the progress of Nepalese women in Nepal? What is your opinion regarding the situation of Nepalese women here?
Well, first of all, I already mentioned that I thought it was a very positive step forward that we would have 33.3% representation of women in Nepal as Parliament. I think that's a very, very positive step forward for women. As I have been touring the country, I'm very encouraged by the number of women participants I see active in local authorities and acting as deputy mayors in some cases, but also very active in the community in developing policy, particularly in the area I've noticed of nutrition and in the school sector, in the education sector. So I think this is very positive. Of course, it's one of the sustainable development goals, of course, is always to promote the inclusion and empowerment of women in society. This is something that the EU has as a principle. Gender mainstreaming in all of our policies is what we do. And we consider this an important principle, not only for women and girls, for their human rights, and to develop them as people and as in their own right, but also as a question of development, as a development issue. Because without this participation of 50% of the society, it is extremely difficult for a society to grow and reach its full potential. So it's, I think women's and girls' rights is not just a women's issue, it's a development issue.
How can Nepal contribute towards a global peace?
Well, I think Nepal is already contributing to global peace. It has a very high participation in UN peacekeeping, and the Nepalese army is very recognized worldwide for the contribution that they make to peacekeeping. Second, I think adherence to international commitments and conventions to which the Nepalese government has signed up is extremely important, and respect of these commitments and is a key element in building peace globally. The other element, and here I would like to congratulate Nepal, is that it now has is a member of the UN Human Rights Council, and this gives it an unprecedented opportunity. First, time to do this, to influence human rights policy and assume its responsibility globally for human rights, and these are the building blocks: human rights, democracy, good governance. These are the building blocks of peace. So there's much that Nepal can do.
We have a European Union EU election observation mission as well. So would you like to share something about that?
Yes, indeed. The election observation mission was present here in the country for a number of months, preparing the elections first of all, and here it was at the request of the government of Nepal, and they were here first of all to prepare the elections and then to conduct the election observation mission. There were over 100 EU observers deployed throughout the country, and the result of their observation was a report with I think some 29 recommendations.
Yes, 29.
Yes. This mission is an independent body with its own separate mandate and under the conduct of the chief election observer. It offered these recommendations objectively, while underlining that they were simply recommendations, and that it would be, of course, entirely up to the government of Nepal if they were to be implemented or not. Maybe to add one element, we have a long-standing relationship with the government of Nepal in election observation. This is not the first election observation mission we have conducted here. And indeed, we have had an election support program with the government, which since the issuing of the recent EOM report, the government has asked us to extend. So I think this demonstrates that we have a very forward-looking cooperation with the government on election support, and we look forward to cooperating further in this regard.
So, do you have a system of accountability?
Yes, we do. We have a very strong system of accountability, I would say. Our development funding from the EU comes from our member states, from their taxation, and it's very important that we can be accountable to our citizens, our own citizens. So we have many checks and balances and systems of verification in place for how our development assistance money is spent. This includes checks and balances systems, sample verifications. It also includes visits to the field by my staff and indeed sometimes myself to see that projects are being conducted properly on the ground and with the level of impact that we expect. I think that our systems are good ones and sound ones, and that our development assistance projects have a significant impact on the ground. And indeed, very importantly, this is not just the view of the EU, but when I'm speaking with our government interlocutors at the highest level, we receive great appreciation from the government of Nepal for what we are doing in development assistance. So I think our systems are sound and our development is delivering.
You say that you traveled a lot of different paths here in Nepal, in the different like Nawalparasi and Lumbini. So which was your favorite place that you want to go again and again?
Well, I wish I had the luxury of saying that I could go again and again to the same places, but Nepal is a very big country, and in fact, although I have seen some places, I think I also will have to visit some other areas in the country and the different provinces, particularly as we look to supporting federalism with the government. So I'm looking forward to visiting other areas and other provinces in Nepal. But this is a beautiful country. It is a country with so much to offer. The mountains are extraordinarily impressive. And I have to say that also on my travels, I have become more sensitized to the very difficult challenges that Nepal faces in terms of topography, geography, inaccessibility, the remoteness of some places and the difficulties of infrastructure. I'm also very admiring of the resilience of the people, because the cultivation of land at these high levels and in such inaccessible places is extraordinarily demanding, and yet they do it, and it has been done very beautifully and very well when you see the terraced lands as one goes up the mountains. But a lot of challenges for the people, including bringing the right levels of education and nutrition and hospital services to these communities. It's quite a task, but I look forward to visiting further in Nepal.
Do you have any message to the Nepalese people or to the government of Nepal?
I have a heartfelt message of goodwill towards the people of Nepal in this current time when they're facing so many challenges. Federalism, implementation of the constitution, development challenges, growth, building up of industry, all of the priorities of which the government set out in its policy statements. I would like the people of Nepal to know that they have the full support of the European Union in all of these ambitions and objectives. And we are here as a long-time partner and friend to Nepal to help support them further.
Thank you so much for having us here and giving your time. I hope EU and Nepal government will work to promote the bilateral relationship that we have. So thank you for having us.
Thank you indeed. Thank you very much.